Photiou here. If you've never seen me before, I'm on a mission to help 1,000 supplement brand owners scale past $1 million per month by helping them install systems that reliably attract new customers and extract more profit from them. And in today's video, I'm going to show you how you can actually start competing with these 9-figure brands and how you can basically just easily and relentlessly scale to those 7-figure months, right? So first things first that you need to understand is important metric in e-commerce, because everything has to be tracked, everything has to be measured, and you can only measure everything through data, right? So what you need to understand is first of all, the most important metric in e-com, and that is going to be this important metric right here. So your LTV to CAC ratio, right? That's your most important metric, because what that basically tells you, I'm going to explain it in a lot more detail in just a second, but essentially it just shows you how much money you're making in 90 days. By the way, this is 90-day LTV. So 90-day LTV over your CAC ratio, right? And the whole point, this is the most important metric, is because you can now basically understand that, okay, I'm spending $20 to acquire this customer, but in 90 days from he buys, he is spending an average of $100 with me. So I can actually afford to not spend $20, but I can actually afford to spend, let's say, $50 to acquire that customer, because I know that he's going to pay me back $50 in profit. So why do the other metrics not matter as much? Well, I mean, let's take ROAS, for example, right? Let's take your return on ad spend. The return on ad spend is good, right? It measures the performance of your ads, but that's what it does, right? It just measures the performance of your ads, right? This is not going to show you how you can scale your business. It's not going to show you how healthy your business is. It's not going to show you how aggressively you can scale, right? Yes, a high ROAS is good and it's very, very desirable, but it's not the be all end all in scaling to $1 million per month. And I'm going to give you a story actually about how Chad, the founder of Grunz, actually managed to use this strategy to do this, right? He scaled to what? I think it was $500 million in 2 years. It was some crazy outstanding number, right? But basically, so that you know, right, you basically know now that the LTV to CAC ratio is the most important metric in your business, right? That there's no doubt about that. It is the most important metric in your business. So how can we go ahead and how can we basically, what are we basically aiming for, right? What are we aiming for? What is the ideal ratio? B, how can you go ahead and actually structure it in a way and engineer it in a way where it benefits your brand, right? I'm going to go over all of this in just a second. So first things up, right? LTV to CAC ratio, right? You know this, it's your 90-day LTV. Remember, it's always 90-day, we're talking about 90-day LTV. And your goal, right, should be at a 3-to-1 at least. If you can get to a 3-to-1 LTV to CAC ratio, you're golden. You can scale fucking relentlessly and you're going to have no problem scaling to 7-figure months, right? If you can do this, you're golden, right? Now, this is actually not very easy to do, right? It's not very easy to do, and I'm sure you know that. So what I'm going to quickly do now is I'm basically just going to give you a little analogy as to how I like about it, how my business partner likes to think about it, and how we basically go ahead and do this for our clients that work with our agency. So first things first is, right, imagine you have a seesaw, right? Seesaw, remember when you were a little kid, you'd sit on this end and somebody else would sit on this end and it would go up and down, right? Both ends, right? What I want you to imagine is the same thing, except for LTV is on this side and CAC is on this side. Your LTV should always be heavier than your CAC, right? If that is the case, then you are profitable, right? You're profitable. You're somewhat profitable. Now, it depends how much heavier your LTV is than your CAC. If your LTV is much, much heavier than your customer acquisition cost, then you're going to be much, much more profitable. If it's just a little bit heavier, then you're going to be just a little bit profitable, right? We want to get this ideally to a 3-to-1, as we spoke about earlier, right? So your LTV should be 3 times heavier than your customer acquisition cost. If you have that, you're in a perfect, healthy environment, right? So now let's actually talk about how can we go ahead and like genuinely engineer this ratio, right? Because here you can literally engineer this. You can split a line down the middle of this, and you can go ahead and engineer this, right? So let's talk about CAC first. Let's talk about customer acquisition cost first. It's the most simple one. How can you go ahead and minimize the customer acquisition cost, right? So first things first is obviously your ads, right? If you have better ads, then you're obviously going to be spending much less to acquire a customer. If you're spending much less to acquire a customer, that obviously favors this ratio, right? So if you have better ads, what I mean by better ads, it basically just means like, okay, are you taking into mind market awareness, right? Excuse me for handwriting. Are you also taking into account market sophistication? Are you also taking into account that you need only one specific avatar per ad, right? One specific avatar. The reason for that, actually, I can actually dive a bit more deeper on this, is because every single avatar is going to have one mass desire, right? And you can also substitute that for pain or anxiousness or fear or belief, right? But they're going to have like this core driving reason as to why they should take an action. And that's why you need to get super, super specific with your avatars. In fact, if you actually go ahead and create an unknown avatar that nobody else has actually ever targeted before, you're going to break into a completely unknown market, and your customer acquisition cost is going to go right down, because you're essentially first to the market. If you've read advertising about yours, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The fact that you can create the untapped markets just by targeting different people. You can still sell the same product. It could be new or old. You can just target a complete new segment of people that have never been targeted before and haven't been shown your offer before, and show them how your product solves their problem. But anyway, I digress. That's a whole different conversation. And the next thing here is like, this is actually probably the most important part of this whole like rant about ads, and that is the ability to test scientifically, right? Now, I actually have a big problem with the e-com space and how most people tell you to A/B split test, right? A/B split testing is just completely understood, right? A/B split testing should never ever happen unless you are already making a ton of money with one variation, and you know that, okay, well, my ad is actually bringing me a 9x ROAS. If I can get it to a 9.5, that would be amazing, right? But if you're at a 0.5, you don't want to just make that 0.5% marginal increase, because that's not going to have any effect for your business, right? So A/B split testing is very misunderstood in this way. What I mean by scientifically testing is understanding, like, okay, what is the KPI? So what is a desired KPI? And how far away is it from, your current KPI, right? So let's say current KPI. How far away is it from your current KPI? If it's very far away, if your desired KPI is miles away from where you are right now, then A/B split testing makes absolutely no fucking sense, because like, what are you A/B split testing? You're A/B split testing a loser, right? Instead, what you want to do is you want to go find a completely new variation, something you haven't even tried before, right? Something that is usually the things that you don't think are going to work, and the things that you feel like have absolutely no chance of withstanding the market. Those are the things that usually work the best, right? And that's what I recommend you try and do. Now, another thing about testing scientifically is you need to be able to understand the whole premise behind latency, right? So you run a scientific experiment, you run a test. You can't fuck about with that test just because you get anxious, right? You can't sit there for one day and let the ad run for one day and think, oh yeah, one day is done. It's like you spent $100. I can go check if it's a win, right? That's not how you test scientifically, because if you go ahead and do that, you're not allowing nature to take its course, right? I know it sounds really woo-ha, and it sounds fucking stupid, but trust me, because it may take multiple touch points and a bit of time for that ad to really and truly become a winner, and genuinely just like, it has to marinate in your ad account, it has to marinate in the market, it has to marinate in your prospects' minds. And if it marinates and it doesn't perform, then yeah, sure, cut it. But give it time to marinate. And this is what we call latency, right? You need to account for latency when you're doing scientific testing. It's probably the most fucked up thing that I see e-commerce guys do. They don't do this shit, right? They don't know how to scientifically test. No e-commerce guru ever tells you how to fucking test scientifically. It really pisses me off if you can't tell, because I put a lot of effort and a lot of emphasis on testing, because it's genuinely the easiest way. If you can test well, you can do absolutely anything that you want, right? Now, the next part, so we're talking about ads, how you need to make sure that you're aligning with your awareness, the sophistication, right? You have to be really specific with your avatar. You need to be really specific with how you are testing, and you need to test really scientifically, right? Next thing is, the next way you can actually go ahead and reduce your customer acquisition cost is going to be this, right? It's going to be through your landing pages, right? Not enough people put emphasis on landing pages. We put a huge emphasis on it at Ascension, because we understand that if you were to increase your landing page conversion rates by 0.5% only, the increase is crazy, because your customer acquisition cost automatically goes down, and it's more leverageable than creating better ads. Because if your ad gets 0.1% increase in click-through rate, that doesn't do anything, right? It's so marginal, it doesn't really matter, right? It's negligible. But if you can go ahead and increase your landing page's conversion rate by 0.1%, that's a significantly better increase in your, or decrease actually, in your customer acquisition cost, right? So what I mean by that is, let's say right now you are spending $100, and that's to get, let's say, 100 visitors to your site. 100 visitors to your site, because you're spending $100, so one visitor equals $1 in this made up world. Now, let's say you spend $100, right, and you get those 100 visitors, and because you have a 3% conversion rate, you only convert 3 customers, right? You only convert 3 customers because you have a 3% conversion rate. Now, if you were to convert 3.5%, right, so you're still spending that $100. If you were to convert 3.5%, that would equal 3.5 customers. Now, that doesn't seem like much here, but let's say you are already at the 7-figure level and you're spending, let's say, $20K a month on ads, right? Or let's keep it simple here. Let's just go, you're spending $10,000 per month on ads, right? If you go, right? If I do this really quickly, that, my friends, that you can already start to see why this is so leverageable. But that is going to get you, let me see, 3% times 10,000. That's going to bring you 300 customers, right? Now, if you also to do that same calculation, but at a 3.5% conversion rate, that, my friends, would equal 350 customers. So you've automatically just added 50 new customers to your business without spending a single dollar more in ads. And let's say your AOV is, let's go quite conservative, let's say it's $30. $30 times 50, that's what, $1,500 extra from the same amount of spend. You're just leaving money on the table if you're not trying to increase your conversion rate. So your conversion rate is super, super, super important. I cannot place enough emphasis on it. If you don't have your conversion rate optimized, then you're literally leaving money on the table, right? And these are quite conservative numbers. Essentially, we managed to get people's landing pages up to an 8%, 9% conversion rate. It's crazy, and that's on cold traffic. It's absolutely mental, the stuff that we have actually seen and been able to do. Now, if you can manage to get that, obviously, I mean, if we do the math on that, 10,000 times, let's say even 5%, you can understand 500 customers, right? 500 customers, an extra 200 customers, an extra 200 customers there. And if you times that by $30 AOV, that's going to equal what? That's going to equal an extra $6,000 from exact ad spend, right? To see, like, if the more you put emphasis on the conversion rate on your landing page, the better results you are going to have, right? So that's why we put a bunch of emphasis on that. Now, we've spoken a lot about the customer acquisition cost side of things. As you can see by my wonderful drawings, there's a whole bunch that you can actually go ahead and take away from there. Now let's talk about the LTV side of things. How can you increase your 90-day lifetime value? Well, the first thing and most obvious thing is to include a subscription, right? A subscription offer. If you have a subscription offer, it's crazy how much easier this becomes once you have a subscription offer. Now, the subscription offer, you can actually go ahead and you can test. So again, scientific testing also applies here, right? If you test really scientifically, so you can test against 90-day supply. You can also test 30-day supply, right? You can test all these different things. You can also test like different upsells, downsells, cross sells, right? You can test all these things, and all of these things are going to help increase your average 90-day LTV, right? If you can increase your 90-day LTV, again, what we're trying to do is achieve a 3-to-1 ratio, right? And this is exactly how to achieve it. So yeah, literally, this stuff is so simple. Like it's really so simple. Once you become aware of it, and once you know, like, okay, all I really need to do is just increase LTV. How can I increase LTV? Well, if I add a subscription offer, it's automatically going to go up because people are subscribing and they are more likely to stay longer on average than if I don't have a subscription, right? It takes a lot more effort for somebody to come back to your website and order again than if it was to just automatically charge them and the product just comes to their door, right? People are always looking for the easiest solution, and if you're making people come back to your website and place another order with you, it's just unnecessary friction, which I actually should have added here. You want much less friction. So you want much less friction, and you want things to much faster on your landing pages. But anyway, we're past that. So yeah, upsells, cross downsells, you need all of them, right? The more of that you can get, the better. So a really good example of this is, let's say somebody orders. So somebody just spends some money. So they've come from an ad to your landing page. They spent some money. Now, most people, they just end it here. There's nothing here, right? You are not going to do that, my friend, because you are clever and you are not going to leave money on the table because you're not gay, right? What you need to do is you have an ad, it goes to a sale, right? People buy, and they buy only, it's a one-time purchase here. Most of the time, people are only going to buy one time, even if you do have a subscription offer available. People are still going to, a lot of the time, buy one time, especially new customers, right? And they're not returning ones. So what you need to do is send them to a post-purchase funnel. If you send them to a post-purchase funnel, here is where you can start doing all this fancy shit, where you can upsell, downsell, cross-sell. Something that's really cool here, this is how you can easily increase your LTV, right? Let's say here, they did a one-time purchase. When they come to the post-purchase funnel, all you have to do is just upsell onto a subscription, right? If you can upsell them people to a subscription, shit becomes so much easier, again, because you're automatically fueling the 90-day LTV. Right? If somebody goes ahead and they already purchased a subscription, well, you might be thinking like, okay, if somebody already purchases the subscription, what can I upsell them on? Right? Well, let's say somebody goes ahead and purchases the 30-day subscription. Here, you automatically upsell again to 90-day subscription. Right? If you can do that, your 90-day LTV is automatically going to go up, right? Because you're just going to have much less churn automatically because people are already locked for 90 days, right? And again, like, just to preface all of this, if you're selling a shit product, none of these strategies are going to work. Just your product actually has to be good. Otherwise, people are just not going to want to do shit with you. You're not going to have any positive reviews. If you have no positive reviews, you're just going to lose on a bunch of money, right? Next thing, to increase your LTV to CAC ratio. So remember, we're talking about the LTV side here. Yeah, we're talking about LTV here. You want to start using email and SMS. If you start using email and SMS and you constantly like send people value, send people examples on how to use the product better, how can people get the most out of your product? Here are some challenges. Here's another offer, right? You can consistently be providing new value, new knowledge, build a brand, right? Because most supplement brands are not really brands; they're just supplement businesses, right? And as a supplement brand, you're not in the brand or you're not in the business of selling a supplement. You're in the business of consistently selling supplements to the same people and getting them to adapt their lifestyle. A really good example of this is Lululemon. So Lululemon, actually what they do is they build a community, and the way they do that is they have like little community hubs, right? And what these community hubs are is people who purchase from Lululemon and who are in that exclusive club. I think it works something like this. There's like an exclusive club that you join. Anybody who's inside that exclusive club of Lululemon and they're part of the brand, they can go ahead and work out in these special community hubs. And that is a real fucking powerful feeling, right? If you go and you are like, imagine you're one person out of 100 people who's allowed in this whole specific building, you're going to have a lot of affinity to that building because you are automatically going to like it. It's exclusive. It's giving you some status, right? So that is a really cool thing. You need to be building a brand. And if you can build a brand rather than just sell a product, you're automatic. Like all of this gets so much easier. All of this gets so much fucking easier. It's actually insane, right? Now, going back, like, yeah, you introduce SMS. SMS is probably going to be better for like Black Friday deals, different seasonal promotions, all of that stuff. Email is also really good. Like if you can get someone to really do a good job with your email marketing, or you can do it yourself, like that is gonna immensely help with your LTV because it's a reminder to people that, hey, I'm still here, right? Another thing is like most brands don't do this, but you have to let your customers know that you're gonna charge their card like at least 3 days in advance, so people aren't surprised. Because if somebody gets hit by a surprise, right, they're gonna call their bank, they're gonna start disputing the charge. Your Shopify, your Stripe is gonna get absolutely fucked, and it's just gonna be a whole shit show, right? So you need to let people know that you're about to charge them. If you don't, then it's just not worth it, right? If people don't want to get charged, then let them cancel. Otherwise, it's just gonna be a shit show for you. But yeah, and the thing you might be wondering, right, is okay, well, how does this all apply to me? How does this all apply to me? Now I'm about to show you, right? So we're back here. We have 90-day LTV to CAC ratio, right? So let's say in 90 days, 90-day LTV is, let's call it $150, right? So you're making roughly $50 average monthly subscription AOV, right? So your average order value on subscription is $50, and within 90 days, people order 3 times, so that means they get $150. They spend $150 with your brand. And let's say your customer acquisition cost for that customer, right, at the moment is $10. But right now, all you can really do is you're currently at a, let's say, ROAS of 1.4x, right? Now, if you were to basically take a hit on the ROAS and get your customer acquisition cost up to $20, right? You might be thinking like, why the fuck would I do that? That just means I'm making less profit. But the thing is, you are going to be getting a lot more customers in the door. You're going to be getting a lot more customers in the door, and you're still going to be making this immense profit here, but just on a complete flywheel, right? Let me try give you some math here. So let's say 1,000 people see your ad, and fast forward to sale, right? Let's say one person buys out of every 1,000 people that see your ad, right? Now, what we can basically take from here is that person is then going to go ahead and spend $150 with you in the next 90 days. And you spent $20 to acquire that customer. Therefore, you made a $130 profit on him, right? In that 90-day period. Now, let's say you wanted 10,000 people to see your ads, right? You are inevitably going to hit like some point where your ROAS just doesn't stick. It's going to go down. Like there's nothing you can do about that, because what you need to worry about isn't the ROAS itself, it's the absolute profit that you're making per customer. And that is why the LTV to CAC ratio is so fucking important. If the absolute profit you are making is higher, you're going to be making a ton more money in general, right? And this is actually Grunz, right? If you know Grunz. If I come here to Grunz, Daily Nutrition, these guys founders, Chad Janis, I was watching one of his podcasts the other day, and he was actually explaining this exact same strategy. Like, he does this exact same thing where they just rely on the LTV, because the LTV to CAC ratio, they were aiming for exactly a 3-to-1 LTV to CAC ratio. And if you can go ahead and do the exact same thing, you can afford to spend that amount of money on the front end, because you know in 90 days from now, you make a whole bunch more on the back end, right? Now, please take this with a little bit of a caveat, because what I'm saying I'm not trying to say you should try to be less profitable, right? A lot of people take this the wrong way. I'm not saying you should be less profitable. What I am saying, however, is you should, if needs be willing to take the hit on the front end, because you are going to make a lot more money on the back end. And it is inevitable that you are going to take the hit on the front end when you try to scale your spend on ads, because your ROAS is just going to hit a ceiling where it's going to have this point of diminishing returns. So yeah, and by the way, if you are trying to scale your supplement brand and you are between that $250,000 and $600,000 per month in revenue mark, and you can't for the life of you just, figure out a way that you can scale your supplement brand to 7-figure months, if that's your goal, then you should click the in the description. I'm not going to try and sell you anything. It is just a video that's basically going to show you the 3 vital pillars to scaling that to that 8-figure mark that we help all of our clients implement, and it's basically how my company can help you scale if you would like, right? So it is a funnel in the end, and yeah, the purpose is it's designed to sell you on something eventually. But if you want to click on it, be my guest. If not, I don't care, it's fine. Yeah, and yeah, if you like this video, then you should prove it. Hit the like button, and if you do have any other questions, just comment them down below, or if you want something clarified, or if you want something mentioned, then comment it all below and subscribe, so you can actually see when I make a video answering your questions or clarifying what you want clarifying. Because yeah, I post content that's going to help you scale your supplement brand to that 8-figure mark, and because it actually also helps me a bunch, right? I really appreciate it. Again, thank you so much for sticking with me to the end. I really do hope you have an amazing day and you make a ton of money, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video.